And his name is John C.
When I was 23, my boyfriend and I broke up, so I was in the process of moving away from my hometown to Houston. I just wanted to start over somewhere new. It was about 3 a.m., and I was driving through a small town in Texas on my way to Houston when I decided to stop for gas. It was pretty empty, but the gas station was open. As I was filling up, looking at my phone, I saw a truck pull up to the pump on the other side of me. I wasn't paying any attention until I put my phone in my pocket to put the nozzle back, and I saw a man just staring at me. I smiled at him, turning to put the gas cap back on, when I saw 4 more men, 2 on either side. I thought that was weird, but I just wanted to get in my car and go. As I went to pull the handle on my door, they attacked me. I was screaming and kicking and fighting as hard as I could, but I wasn't strong enough. 2 of them pulled me into the back seat of the truck while 2 of them pushed me in. I ended up draped over their laps. I was still trying to get free, but it was hard to move with their weight holding me down. I started to cry. I have never felt so weak in my life. I started scratching one man thinking, if they kill me, his DNA will be under my nails. They pulled up to a motel and carried me inside of a room. I was screaming again, and the oldest looking one started hitting me, telling me to be quiet. One of them said if I was good, they wouldn't hurt me. They held me down on one of the beds and tied my hands and feet together with a belt and some kind of thin string like a shoelace. I was panicking and still crying, just telling them to let me go. I wouldn't say anything. I wouldn't tell anyone, that's what I told them. They started talking to each other in another language, one I couldn't recognize. Looking around the room, I saw bags and beer cans, lots of beer cans. It smelled like they had all been staying in this one room with 2 beds for a while. I don't really want to get into what they did to me, but at some point, one of the men said they needed more beer. They decided the smallest one was going to stay in the room with me. So after the other 4 left, it was just me and the man who looked to be around my age. I remember thinking, I could probably beat him up if I get loose. I asked him if I could use the bathroom. And when he untied me, I bolted for the door. I swung the door open, and he grabbed my arm. I yelled, "Get off me," and he let go, eyes wide. I ran down the street, no clothes on, and jumped in front of the first car I saw. It was a confused elderly man. He rolled down his window and yelled, "What are you doing?" Like I was ruining his morning or something. I told him I needed help and that I was kidnapped. He drove me to the police station where I was given scrubs and could file a report. They ended up saying I needed to go to the hospital for an examination so they could record any evidence that the man may have left on me. I just wanted to shower and go home, honestly. I just wanted to talk to my mom. They found the men the same day. It turns out they were all brothers. They didn't say what they planned on doing with me after, or why they did it in the first place. They claimed to be all blackout drunk at the time. I ended up moving to the other side of the country, and even though I know they're still in prison, I get nightmares about what happened. I don't use my phone at all in public anymore, and my current boyfriend says I'm too paranoid, but I have to be, right? I never want to feel that weak again in my life.
I was in my early teenage years during this time. My family and I went on vacation in a village which had a forest rumored to be haunted. There was a cemetery in the forest. It was a little far away from the village, near a lake. We weren't actually supposed to go to that forest, but my cousins thought it would be fun to play hide and seek at night. We were given some rules. We weren't allowed to take our phones or flashlights with us. As planned, we all met in front of our farmhouse at midnight. Me and my younger sister, who was 7 years old at that time, were the youngest out of everyone. So my older cousin decided to help us hide. He was 22 at that time, and he wanted to make sure we didn't get lost. After we chose who was going to be the seeker, we parted ways, trying to find the best hiding spot. My older cousin just wanted to win, so he took us to the cemetery. He said, "She'll obviously be too afraid to enter the cemetery. I think this will be a best hiding spot for us." Although my younger sister kept telling us not to go there, we shut her off, telling her she was just a kid and would make us get caught. To this day, we wish we would have listened to her. It was getting darker. It was almost 2 a.m. Then all of a sudden, the cemetery lights went out. My sister's hand tightened around my hand. My cousin was obviously scared too. We could only hear the sound of wind and stray dogs barking at the backside of the cemetery. But then, we heard digging noises. I still remember that horrifying sound. At a distance, we could see an old man with ruffled hair and dirty clothes, digging a grave with his bare hands. He was making hissing noises while he dug. All of us stood there frozen. We didn't know if we should scream or run away. My cousin held our hands and started to slowly lead us to the entrance, trying not to make any noise. He whispered, "We have to get out of here." My sister was almost on the verge of crying.
It was at this moment he knew. He fucked up.
Broken branch making a loud noise. The stranger shot up his head toward our direction and his lips curved in a creepy smile. "Run!" my cousin yelled, quickly picking up my sister and running away as I followed closely behind them. Thankfully, the man was weak and couldn't run any faster. He stopped at the middle of the cemetery staring at us with his hazel eyes. A few days later, we found out that the man had been caught by the police. He was a criminal who dug up dead bodies, stored drugs in them, and sent them off to other nations to sell drugs. He was caught once, but successfully escaped. If he wasn't so old and weak, I'm afraid that we might have ended up being a couple of dead bodies too. This happened when I was a kid. I was in the 5th grade and my friend, let's call him Ethan, invited me over to his place. He lived right by the ocean, and if you walked through the forest for half a mile, you'd reach a nice beach with a diving board. When I got to his house, we hung out, played video games, and talked. You know, typical kid stuff. Then we decided to go to the beach. It wasn't too far away and we knew we could get back in time for dinner, so we set off. To make the trip more adventurous, we decided to bushwhack our own path. After walking a couple of minutes, we hit a tall fence. "Crap!" Ethan exclaimed. "Well, I guess we'll have to go back." Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted something. The fence went about 8 meters long and then stopped. My jaw dropped. There was a house. It was an old cabin with boarded up windows. The planks were falling off and you could see the old insulation underneath. It was gray in color and had flecks of blue paint. The fence led up to the side of the house, stopped, and then continued on the other side. What scared me the most was that there was no road. I mean, not even a clearing to get to the road. You'd have to walk 20 minutes. "Kevin, come on!" Ethan yelled from behind me. "Look at this!" I shouted back. Ethan walked up to me and his jaw dropped. There was no door, just a frame, and peering through the frame we could see that there was a back door, also with no frame. All we had to do was walk through the house, then we could get to the beach. I looked at Ethan. "Should we do it?" I asked him. He shrugged. "I don't see why not," he responded. Inside the house was dark, despite the sunlight pouring in through the door. We advanced slowly through the house, and Ethan pointed to the door. As we reached the door, I peered up the stairs. I grabbed Ethan and shoved him out the door. "What was it?" he said as soon as we got away. My whole body shook. I must be going mad, I thought to myself. Eventually, I explained it to him. As we reached the door, I wanted to take one last look at the house. I glanced up the stairs and I saw the shadowy outline of a person. All I could see were eyes staring back at me and a crooked grin. Ethan and I took another route back home, and we told Ethan's mom. She laughed at us and said she'd been that way many times and there was no house. And we were angry because she didn't believe us, so we got out our cameras and went back the next day. When we got there was no house. It was just gone. No clearing, nothing. To this day, Ethan and I still wonder what it was. Was that man just a homeless person, or maybe he was something much, much worse? I suggested to Ethan a theory that scares me to this day. I had been reading about Russian folklore, and a page caught my attention. It was a story about a witch named Baba Yaga who had a moving house. She would eat naughty children, and parents used to use it to scare children. Was this a witch? I guess we'll never know for sure.
Pull up, yeah. Pull up, watch it. Pull up, shit. Pull up.